Hello, welcome to today. And today is the Volkchoi Let Sure slash, I don't care what you want to call it. This is the Artti R2. Again, this is the R1 was excellent. I love that little bad boy. It wasn't little actually. It was meaty aluminum shell, 3 dynamic drivers. Awesome. Love it very much. This one is an alternate to that. And let's jump right into this little guy. This is the R2. Now the R2 is $62 list price, full wacko-bobo, and you find it on sale for about $39 USD. So very well priced. 10 millimeter, full 10 millimeters, beryllium plated, coated, smothered, creamed dynamic driver in this really incredibly small shell. I have a sneaky suspicion, because you can kind of see inside with that little breather hole right there, that they put the dynamic driver kind of right above the nozzle, and I think that's what's also giving this some great sound. 2 color choices. I chose yellow over green for something different, and I'm glad I did. 2 cable choices. Thank you very much, Volkchoi. The Artti branded cables, they have a bunch of other cables that I absolutely love. They have a 2-core SPC cable, modular, that is killer, blue, called the A5. I love that cable. This one is on a different cable because I wanted to add a little bit more brightness, and we'll talk about that in the sound. But in the cable choices, talking about the plug, so 3.5 or 4.4 balanced, if that is your preference, as is mine. The little cable that comes with it is actually quite nice, and it's not a throwaway cable unless you want to change or tweak the tuning as I did. Now, the sound profile of the R2 is completely inoffensive, which means it will not offend you, or it shouldn't offend you. Something like that. Very well tuned, I think, personally. Slight sub-bass rise. This is not a bass beast over mid-bass. With a gentle glide into the mids. Clean and smooth mids, actually. More of a softer presentation. Kind of like a bid to introduce an analog, old school, big speaker sound, which I think they did a damn good job of doing. And now in the graph, which I'll pull up, it's a nice gentle glide into the mids. And then the mids climb back up with a matching pinna glide. So it's not one of these sharp upticks into the treble or into the upper mids. It's gently sloped. Again, it rises from about 800 hertz to about 3K with about a 9 dB gain. And that was kind of what the bass slope was too. So everything kind of stays within about 9 dB. Before leveling off the treble in this case and extending out past about 5K. And then you have a little small sibilance dip, and then you get more energy into the highs before it rolls off after about 8K. So in a single dynamic driver, that is pretty darn good. It's I think they squeezed everything out of this driver. I think what you'll find though, by kind of doing that tuning, what I found is it really made a nice, very smooth and organic kind of sound in the upper mids and mids without any harshness or bite to the treble. And I really like that kind of tuning. And let's talk about from the bottom octaves again, all the way up to the top. Bass, not bass head level, but very balanced in the mix. Transitions nicely. And again, I'll say that again because I think it was well tuned in that way. So not too much sub bass and enough energy into the mid bass to make instrumental and vocal sound nice, right? I think you get overall slightly warm sound, especially if you put this in a more analog sound if you put this on a warm source. Like I had it on the Shanling M8 and it was mellow mode dialed to 10. Absolutely love that presentation. And as we climb into the mids, I don't find them absolutely, they're not forward like you would typically see in a lot of chi-fi tunings where that pinna gain rises really up and it puts the upper mids right in your face. This isn't like that. It's more of a laid back tuning. I think, like I said, this would be an awesome, great set to just sit back and let the music take over and let your mind drift away. And that's, in a nutshell, how I would describe the R2 for sure. Just coming off of the SIMGOT EA 500 LM, taking those out and listening to a lot. My first reaction on these were they weren't very resolving and they were a bit dullish. And that's because the EA 500 LM is an intense IM. It's fantastic, but it's very resolving. It's an amazing driver. And this is kind of like a complementary, right? So if you wanted to pick up a super kind of energetic and resolving set, EA 500. If you wanted a more chill, relaxing set, this little guy would be a one to pick up. So in that statement, though, when I giving it some reflection and some mindful thought, in one way, that part was actually correct. The R2 doesn't have the most resolving driver like the SIMGOT EA 500 LM. And my reaction, my opinion of that still holds true. But the dull part, no. So that was a first reaction too when I took him out of the box and I didn't do any burn-in. After that, about 40 hours ago, or on, I should say, the set changed quite a bit. It got played a little bit lower and smoother, and it extended out a little bit more. Now, people love to say, well, that's brain burn-in, but not when you're switching IMs all the time. You don't, your brain doesn't really have too long of a chance to, unless you have a super analytical brain. I don't think they're dull at all. The R2 really, above all else, is musical. I'm going to say that. It really is. And it's one thing I appreciate about the Pen-On house sound was how musical the vocals and mids were. And I think this little guy kind of incorporates a lot of that house tuning sound into the mids. Or I should say probably over the entire tuning of the IM itself. So if you kind of like that that kind of laid back mid vocal presentation, you probably really like this one. Except for it's got some decent high end as well. And so, I mean, one of the things I was looking at my notes is like, yeah, this would be like similar like a Pen-On house sound, but no big V's, no big V shapes, no huge bass bleeds, less colored, yet significantly, I think, very enjoyable. Balanced, smooth, organic. Really, that's the way to describe the R2. I get what you did here, guys. I dig it. I get it. I like it. Just to talk about a couple track impressions to give you more of an idea on the musical side, right? So this is with now the M8, so warmer sound, and the stock cable. So I like the sub bass from London Grammar, this song, Hey Now, and the overall, and the bass balance into the mix. So, you know, there is some bass in this song too, but I don't like it when it's too much bass and it drowns out the vocals. It doesn't make this song sound like I believe it should. The vocals have this really organic, effortless quality that lets you just sit back and enjoy the music. That's what I was saying. Highs are very well done, and they complement the mids and the bass. They're more relaxed than they are super airy and dry and sharp, right? That's how they present. I Forgot That Love Existed. On this song, very balanced again, musical, chill, organic, great, effortless vocals. It's like a theme song, right? Micro details are there as well, actually, and enough to bring out the emotion of this track. And that was contradictory to that first, where I said my first opinions of it before they were burned in, where this one was kind of dull. It actually is not a dull sounding I Am at all. It just presents more analog. Now, if switching over to the desktop stack down in my chair, so I have the Gishelli Labs J2 with the 4493 AKM with the Sparkos Labs Pro Op Amps and the D90. That is a very clean, very linear, very uncolored system. Now, I did Wake Me Up When September Ends by Green Day. I wanted to hear what it could do. Could this I Am liven up? And then I switched over to this graphene cable when I was doing all the tip rolling and all that kind of happy jazz. So that's my kind of end combo, by the way. A brighter cable, and this is an SPC graphene cable that I chose. And I use these, these stupid foul H570 tips I found on AliExpress. I really like them. And the fact that they're kind of like horn-shaped like this after it comes out of the nozzle. It's going to be hard to see. They look like, almost look like an Osla crystal tip, but they're grippy too, like that. So like a cheaper version of that, but they flare out at the nozzle, and they really do awesome for vocals. If you don't have a set, pick some up. They're not that cheap, but they're worth it, in my opinion. Now, with those changes, top end really came to life, opens up quite a bit. That analogness still stays there, but it goes a little bit more vocal forward. I really like this Barry driver I wrote, Beryllium Forever Club. Dreams of Reason by the Tea Party. Again, I'm listening to this one. I know this song intimately. I'm listening for some unique things. Very nice sparkle in the top end. How does that come across? The tonality I'm listening for, the guitar and the instrumental. Again, I wrote, I love Barry drivers. So, and it kind of went along with that. So if you want to scope this, and it depends on your source, if you have a really warm source, this will come across as very analog, warm and smooth. If you have a more resolving source, like an ESS DAC or a brighter neutral source, you're going to get more details, more micro details, more stage you're going to pull out of this driver. Talking about stage for a second, it was average. There was nothing super 3D or standout about the track, and I think that really had to also play into part about the overall tuning, right? I mean, I don't think you couldn't have a smooth analog kind of replay if you had too much things going on, left, right, top, bottom, behind your head, that kind of stuff. It wouldn't play well. It'd be weird. Where you just don't notice the stage, you just listen to the music, right? Now, a couple of people, so that was my conclusion, really, somewhere in all that jumble of words that I was saying. if you got the gist of how I thought this thing sounded. And again, I'll go back and use those words: analog, smooth, relaxing, still detailed, but not treble offensive in any way. In comparison, if you have listened to the R2. Now, the R2 with the 3 dynamic drivers is the more resolving, clinically cleaner, more bass, more authoritative. But the core tonality, if you like the sound of what they did here, you'll like the sound of the R2. But a couple things. It's minus 16 degrees Celsius outside. And these get really cold with the metal shells. I didn't really notice that. The resin shells, if you're going on public transit or whatever and you're outside, these things in your case, you put them in your ears, you'll have little icicles, where the resin don't seem to do that. So it was, normally don't have this kind of weather here, but there you go. So the shells are like, I don't know, a quarter the size. Honestly, between the R1 and the R2, right? They're so much smaller. So fitment-wise, you'll get more people to get into the R2. And I described the R2 as the chill little brother, better for just kicking back. So if you thought the R1 was a little too kind of clean, then you'll get a little bit more laid-back presentation with the R2. Somebody also then commented on my YouTube channel. I said, what about the cadenza? And I was like, you know what? That's a pretty good comparison. And then I pulled up the squig graph of the cadenza. I still have, I won't sell the set. And they were looking for a recommendation to replace their cadenza. Now, the problem for me with the cadenza, and I love it, again, Barry Driver, was that I just wishing it had a little bit more clarity to the upper mids and treble. And that's what happened to the R2. So if you're a lover, and there's a lot of you that have this little KIWIEARS cadenza, but wanted a little bit more resolution, a little bit more detail, a little bit more clarity, a little bit more vocal forwardness, not so dark, not so warm. That's the R2 for you. Not as much bass with the RTR2 as there is with the cadenza, and that's also what you, if you looked at a graph, they're very similar. In fact, you'd think that the cadenza would have more trouble, but in fact, because of that extra bass energy, you hear less. And so with the R2, vocals are more forward, they're clear, a more balanced cadenza. There you go, with that little bit of extra highs that the KIWIEARS were missing. So that's a couple comparisons for you. Okay, no $40 IEM comparison can be not compared to the fabulous SIMGOT EW200. This thing was universally loved, and I think more than any other SIMGOT IEM, this hit closer to everyone's pretty happy place. It had plenty of bass, it had fast, tight bass, it had nice mids, it had a gorgeous shell, it had a spectacular price tag, again, of around 40 bucks. All the build quality, everything about it was, you know, well worth its price and more. How does it sound compared to the R2? Well, this is an interesting one in the fact that they graph almost identically, but that's not how they sound. So one of the things with SIMGOT, and its biggest criticism, is the upper mids and mid forwardness that it presents. Now, a lot of people love that because it really adds a lot of perceived clarity, especially really great for female vocals. Now, the R2. R2 presents, well, I should say the EW200 presents way more mid-forward. Again, just like every SIMGOT does, that's kind of more of their house sound. And where the R2 is more laid back, a lot more balanced, a lot more neutral when it comes to presenting mids, instrumental, and vocals. The R2 is much smoother replay, more organic, more natural, doesn't sound as forced, you might say, as the EW200. Where the the mid's weight on the R2 adds, I think, more of a correct balance into the mix, where male vocals sound better here, and they sound on the EW200 a little bit thin and light. The R2 is more tonally correct, in my opinion, than the EW200. You know, too spectacular, in my opinion, $40 IEMs, and it really would depend on what flavor you like. Do you like more mid-forward, brighter sounding upper mids, or do you want a more natural, organic, laid back sound? And that's the R2. So that's how those two compared against each other. So I hope I gave you a good sense of what the Artti R2 was all about. And for $39 on sale, I think it's something to consider if you're looking for that kind of tuning. And if you've new to my channel, or you have watched me before, you'll know that I do gravitate to more of a slightly more, I like the neutral tunings with a little bit of coloration into the warm side. And not the airy, thin, bright side. I would prefer this kind of tuning. And I like fast, transient bass over deep, boomy sub bass. And the beryllium drivers, they work for me. And if you like that kind of tuning, I say give them a shot. Pretty hard to go wrong. Thank you much. This is Tone Deaf Monk. And I am thanking you for all those other likes I see I asked, and you have come through for me on putting up some more likes on my page, and I appreciate it. It helps with the organics of the way my videos get shown. So thank you from the middle of my heart. I'm out.